If you're a Cleveland Browns fan looking for a break from the emotional roller coaster that is the price we pay from loving then hating our Browns, then a big welcome to Cleveland Browns Anonymous, a group therapy podcast to help you survive the season. So let's start our meeting.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike and Brook on a sunny day in Cleveland. It's actually sunny. We haven't had sun since November 13th or so, Betsy Kling said. So it is December 16th, so it's almost been a month since we've seen the sun. And of course, for Browns Nation, it's still a gray day after the latest debacle in Chicago, where it looked like the Browns locker room is ready to pack it in and head south to warmer climates. So, Brooke, initial thoughts post-game?
Pretty bad game. I only could watch the first quarter, and then I think
all you had to do was watch the first play.
Yeah.
When they returned when they returned the kickoff to the 50-yard line.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make this up. And then, of course, when they just marched down the field, scored a touchdown. I mean, and then, of course, the Browns get it, and
they get a penalty.
And
there were some communication problems between Shedeur and the sideline.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm done.
Yeah, it's beyond amateur time.
I think the Bears are a really good example of young, hotshot, smart coach.
Smart coach,
young. I mean, he was the most touted head coach candidate for 2 years, but he was smart, in my opinion. He wanted the Bears job. You know, I think 2 years ago, he was up for a couple other jobs, and he was like, nah, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I'm not going to Las Vegas.
Not going to Vegas. I'm not going to go to the Falcons. So, and Shedeur looked really bad. He had a couple of nice deep throws from the highlights I saw, but for the most part, it was just another really, really awful game. And changes will be coming to Berea, I would guess. But that was just it was just a bad day, a bad game.
Yeah, I think we've reached, what do they call it, the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah, we're in the
acceptance. Yeah, we're the acceptance state. And we've been there. We were there with Hugh Jackson. We were there last year with Stefanski. You know, I can get into just the myriad of screw-ups by the Browns. And it's like death by 1,000 cuts. It's just endless. Special teams gets the ball on the 1-yard line. Browns start on the 1-yard line with Shedeur, and then I guess they commit 2 penalties. He loses his plays, and Stefanski doesn't call a timeout. Jerry Jeudy does what Jerry Jeudy does best, which is underperform by letting that guy intercept a pass that was right there. He should have grabbed.
Well, the announcer for the game on Fox made a good point in I think it was the second drive I saw, where Shedeur was having some communication problems. The play wasn't getting in. There was a penalty, and the announcer said, this is stuff you learn in like OTAs.
Yeah.
This isn't stuff you should be learning, week 14, week 15 of the NFL season.
Right. I've been saying this for weeks, people, if not for months. It's the head coach. This is just 101 stuff. And we just get mesmerized by we talked about the genius coach, and he was a quarterback. Offense, I don't even know if he was offensive coordinator.
He was an offensive coordinator for 1 year.
1 year.
He's quarterback's coach. He was a DB's coach.
And he steps in from Freddie Kitchens. Total disorganization. He had a great organization to work with. He had Baker.
I think it's clear coming off the Hugh Jackson, Freddie Kitchens debacle, hiring Stefanski was the smart choice because he was safe. He looked, He presented himself as being very organized, talking to the press. I mean, now it drives us crazy, but I think going back in time, the Haslam's made the safe bet. And you look at a team like the Lions hiring Dan Campbell, that was a risk. But I think they looked at his personality. They probably talked a lot to Sean Payton because Dan Campbell worked under Sean Payton.
Oh, that's okay. Well, that speaks volumes right there. The Sean Payton tree,
but
versus the Mike Zimmer tree.
Dan Campbell wasn't some offensive guru. He was a leader,
right?
And you see that on the sidelines. But some of these like rare exceptions, like the Chicago Bears head coach Sean McVay, these kind of young guys. I mean, if you hit it and you hit it in the right spot, you're set up for the next, like long time. Look at the Rams, they didn't have a lot of first round picks. They're like, screw that. We're going after Matt Stafford. We're going to hire Sean McVay. We're going to draft some like super talented skill guys in rounds 2 and 3. And
we're going to coach them up. We're going to coach them up.
And now they're at least my bet to make it to the Super Bowl, the Rams. But no, I'm with you. It all comes down to the head coach.
Well, let's talk about the theme of this podcast is it's pointless to go into the weeds again. It's the same old mistakes, the special teams, just the lack of discipline, the lack of accountability. And I was thinking about this with the Browns and Paul DePodesta and Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. They all have one thing in common. They're from Ivy League schools. And Andrew Berry's pet phrase is, this was an organizational decision, which of course Stefanski just mouths. Problem with that kind of thinking is there's no accountability. It's an organizational decision, which is code word for cover your ass. If nobody is responsible, if it's the organization, how do you correct mistakes? Why does the organization keep making the same mistakes? They make the mistakes with this organization at the top makes a mistake hiring a head coach.
I agree with you. And I go back to, I don't have a whole lot of, like, if Andrew Berry sticks around, I'm fine with that because his draft class has been an absolute grand slam. And you got to wonder with Paul DePodesta leaving, if Andrew Berry was given more of the power to draft the players that he wanted in this most recent draft. I go back to, if we took the Browns roster and you put them in the hands of Mike Vrabel or a Kevin O'Connell or a Sean McVay, what would our record be? And I get it. We're the youngest team on the offensive side in football, but that, in my opinion, is not an excuse to have a terrible special teams, to have the most sloppy penalties to start the game. So it comes down to the guy who is coaching them.
Right. But I think also Andrew Berry has got to come into some scrutiny. I'll give you, he hit a grand slam with this draft class. He had first round picks to work with. I think it was inspired to trade out of the Travis Hunter and get Jacksonville to suck up and pay a 1 and a 2. And we still keep our 1. I think that was inspired. But then you look at his inability to, how does he give Jerry Jeudy a 3-year contract extension after 5 games he played? Here's Sean Payton, who wrote off Jerry Jeudy, who couldn't wait to get rid of him. What is Andrew Berry seeing in Jerry Jeudy that leads him to overpay for this guy? Now, I don't have a problem with him getting him for a 4th or 5th round pick and see if you can turn around. But see, here's the problem. This is where it comes down to head coaching. Okay, Andrew, if you're listening, you're rolling the dice. Deshaun Watson, Jerry Jeudy, etc. But you're turning it over to a guy who has no qualifications as a head coach to crack the whip and establish a true culture of accountability. Jeudy drops pass after pass. He acts up on the sidelines like Clowney, like OBJ. The list is endless, and Stefanski does nothing. You put Jerry Jeudy, Deshaun Watson with Bill Parcells, that's a whole different laboratory there. And maybe Parcells just goes all over Jerry Jeudy. And you know what? Here's the other thing. When Andrew Berry is going to make the move to get Jerry Jeudy and Bill Parcells is the coach, do you think he's just going to do this without getting Parcells' blessing? I don't think so. And that, again, is where you get into this. It's an organizational decision. It's not an organizational decision, because if it is, then Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are responsible for signing Jerry Jeudy, for bringing in Deshaun Watson. I don't blame the Haslams. I blame Berry and Stefanski, because they should be united in saying Watson is not the guy that we want to invest this kind of money and 3 first-round draft picks. So at its core is the ability for the Browns to recognize talent, or at the least develop the talent they have. And the Browns just clearly, with the special team screw up, that is just, you can't even get a redder flag than that about how they are coaching these players. You get these people who just keep cycling through the same bright head coaches who don't have that blue collar lunch pail. I screwed up earlier. I've learned from my lessons. I'm ready to be a head coach. It is culture. There is no accountability in the organization. Nobody comes out and says, I shouldn't have done that. Well, we should have said something.
One person has.
Haslam.
Well, if they do clean house, I'm fine. If they keep Andrew Berry, I'd be okay with that. There is something refreshing, just cleansing the slate of just starting over completely.
I just wish the media in that press room would start changing its questions. First of all, I would ask the question of Haslam and Andrew Berry after, Stefanski's getting fired. That's a no-brainer. He will be gone. And it's just going to get uglier and uglier against Pittsburgh, Cincy on the road. It'll be terrible. Everybody will be checking out. And Stefanski will be basically a dead man walking. So just like we always do, the Browns will fire their head coach at the end of the season. Okay. Then you're going to get Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam out there. Will somebody ask a fundamental question? Do you guys know how to recognize a quality head coach? Because your track record has been terrible. Why was Stefanski allowed to coach this year? What did you see in him last year that thought he could turn it around this year? Special teams were bad. Players had no accountability. Players would act out. He would do nothing. You saw him ruin Baker. If it wasn't for Joe Flacco coming in and putting his Superman cape on, this team would have probably won only 3 or 4 games with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, the questions from the press room have to be more representative of what the fans are thinking. The fans are not some stupid mob out there. They've seen this. They've seen this for decades. I mean, really, Andrew, you've only been here 4 years, whatever. We've seen this for 30 years. Lousy head coaches, dysfunctional infighting among the organization, terrible development of players.
We got to get you a press badge.
Yeah, no, we use that. Riz should be in there asking these questions, right? And I think, it's one thing for the accountability. I mean, here's the easiest question to ask. Kevin Stefanski said in his first press conference, he had some little cute remark. Do you remember what that remark was?
Smart, tough, accountable.
Yeah, but he also says it's okay to be a personality, but you got to produce on the field, right? There wasn't any accountability. Mm-hmm. Guys were dropping passes. Guys were missing assignments. Guys were jumping off sides. Guys were acting up on the sidelines. There was no accountability. This is typical Ivy League organizational bullshit. And the locker room has tuned out that. You got players on the sidelines probably asking themselves, I can catch the ball, coach. Put me in. And that has been a problem for the last couple of years.
Yeah. No, I feel you. There's definitely no accountability. When guys screw up in the games, not just screw up, but, like mouthing off, yelling, getting into it on the sidelines. So
they'd never do that with Parcells. Mark, get that segment, Bill Parcells on YouTube. I'll coach the goddamn team. He's yelling at his players to shut up.
It's too bad. What the are you doing? Stand 10 yards in the backfield. Get up on the line. Don't you know how much time's on the clock? You almost cost us a chance, son. Come here, I want to tell you something. Come here. Now listen to me real quick. You trying to cut me enough? I don't care. I'll tell you, you get in a fight and you get thrown out of this game, you're going home for good, okay? Just so you know. You want to run tonight, son, or you want to act like a rabbit? You want to run or you want to duck down? If you want to duck, just go over there and get under the bench and stay there. You want to run or not? Tell me, you want to run or not? Then quit putting the brakes on. You stop 5 yards before you got to hit. Now cut it up in there or I'll get me another punt return. I don't really give a Yeah, that's right. That's what you're going to be doing Sunday when we go to Seattle. You're going to be watching the game in New York on TV.
That's called control. Every great coach, Sean Payton, Bill Parcells, Lombardi, they are not putting up with these personalities. They submerge themselves into the team.
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back. Getting your house ready to sell, or you just need some basic repairs, and you can't get anybody to come out or even return your phone call. Then call Riley Painting and Contracting, your home mechanics, for all of your home repair needs, from electrical, plumbing, roof repairs, and getting your house ready to sell. 45 years in the business, a AAA on the Better Business Bureau, and we're on the preferred contractor list in Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights. You can contact us by calling 216-371-8160 and leave a message. And guess what? We'll call you back.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. That's not how Kevin's wired.
Right. And why, what, Andrew, Jimmy, do you understand what it takes to be a head coach? I don't want some senior executive in the C-suite. We need a cultural warrior, a leader. That's what the Browns need. Yet you let Kevin go on these press conferences basically He might as well just say F you to the fan base when he says, I got to coach better. Right?
Yeah. Well,
and here's another question the media could answer. The media could ask Kevin, enough of, I got to coach better. I'm speaking for the fan base. Every time you say that, they throw up. Now, if every week, I'll ask that. If every week you come out here and say that, and then the next week it's the same problem, maybe you should say it differently. Maybe you should say, I don't know how to be a head coach. Just say that. At least we'll cut you some slack, because that implies I've got to learn how to do it differently. But if you have an organization that is more interested in covering your ass as an organization than getting results and really making effective change, that is how you will answer these questions in public. It's not my fault. If you say, I need to coach better week after week after week, that means you are not accountable. Because you should quit. That's the ultimate accountability. I'm really not cut out to do this job. And if I'm ownership, I would have brought these guys in and say, what are you saying out there? Why isn't this improving? What are you doing differently? Because the ultimate head, the CEO, the Jimmy Haslams of any organization, is all over the officers. I mean, in the military, if they had a colonel, if they had a adjutant general, a brigadier general who was screwing up, they'd be relieved of command. They'd be hauled in front of the head of the division, the general in the division, and they would be made to be accountable. And that is what gets passed down the line. That's why you see the special teams so bad. No accountability at the top. And that's the specialty of the Ivy League. In fact, David Brooks, I will put a link on. David Brooks had a great piece in the Atlantic Monthly. He talked about why Ivy League schools are ruining America. And they did a study a couple years ago. They took a group of seniors from Ivy League schools, all different schools, and they took a group of seniors from schools like Bowling Green, Baldwin Wallace, Ohio University, Kent State, your middle America schools. They put them in a group and they gave them an assignment to do, some work exercise for 2 months. And it required the team to act as a team. The Midwest group smoked the Ivy League. When they were quizzed afterwards, the Ivy League students were exceptional at coming up with excuses. They just knew how to work the system because it makes sense. To get into the Ivy League now, you have to have connections. You have to present yourself well. You have to, maybe you knock it out of the park with extracurriculars, AP, GPA, whatever. Where here you get the lunch pail, Midwest schools, which, by the way, the majority of CEOs of successful companies, they are from these Midwest schools. And the thing is, these successful companies in a capitalist economy like the United States, you don't get any more capitalist than the NFL, which is Darwin. Darwin on steroids. If you can't produce, if you can't win football games, you are out. And that's why when you think about these coaches like Bill Walsh, who got rejected by the Bengals, Bill Parcells, who came up through the ranks at all these smaller schools, assistant coach here, defensive coordinator here. I mean, these guys paid their dues to get there. They were not living in the NFL bubble. Okay, I'm going on and on here, Brook. Help me out here.
No, it's interesting about I didn't know that part about the Midwest Ivy League doing that basically lab experiment. I think that, who knows, maybe Stefanski will take this experience, take some time off, come back, get another opportunity somewhere. But right now, he's just not cut out to be a head coach, and especially be a head coach of a team like the Browns, where we are young, we need discipline. And I don't know about you, but like, I kind of want that, like, and this has no like metric or something. Like, I want a guy who like feels like he's from like a blue collar town, like a Dan Campbell, like a Mike Tomlin. I want some guy who's tough, who's going to be in your face. And I think a lot of Browns fans I feel like after each person that gets fired who's been the head coach, you want the exact opposite. So when it was Freddie, who was just like cowboy shooting from the hip, you didn't know what was going to come out. The Haslams were like, okay, we need someone who's organized, who's put together, who's calm. So they went with Stefanski.
And you gotta wonder, what kind of questions are they asking these potential head coaches? I mean, I put this to a podcast a couple weeks ago. Are they saying, hey, who did you fire? Give me a player that you took off the scrap heap and made better. I don't want to hear about your schemes.
Well, that, or you look, if you're the Haslams, you look at it, and because at the end of the day, the decision to hire that person is coming from Jimmy Haslam.
Right.
Now, we can get into a debate about who decided to sign Deshaun, but when it comes to the head coach, at the end of the day, that is the owner's decision. Maybe Jimmy steps back, he's talking to D, he's talking to, his son-in-law, and be like, hey, we really don't know what we're doing here. So let's hire someone who does. Maybe that's what they do.
Executive recruit, some consultant.
Hire like a Bill Parcells, be like, I need you to find me. Give me like 2 or 3 people who you think are, and I guarantee you it's going to be someone you don't even know.
I forget who the famous legendary GM for the Green Bay Packers was. And this is like late 80s, 90s. This is when he's the guy who not only drafted Brett Favre, but then drafted Aaron Rodgers. Ron Wolf, I think.
Yeah.
Ron Wolf.
I think that's right.
Ron Wolf was brought in as a consultant when Butch Davis was the head coach of the Browns. And Butch Davis blew him off. And Ron Wolf resigned. Where was ownership when this was going down? I'll tell you one thing. If I brought in Ron Wolf as the owner, and I heard that Butch Davis was doing that, I would have taken Butch Davis to the executive woodshed in a heartbeat. I said, if you don't play nice with this guy, I'm firing you. And look what happened with Butch Davis. Legendary. There was a playoff game against the Steelers.
Rory and Disney.
Yeah. And Holcomb was just lighting it up.
Yeah.
And then Davis overruled his defensive coordinator, Bruce Arians, and played prevent defense. Arians wanted to blitz this second string.
Sure. It was him?
Yeah.
Because he's an offensive guy.
No, he was defensive coordinator or something. But it came out later after Butch Davis imploded that.
Well, he's my guy.
He threw Arians under the bus.
I've wanted him to.
He actually, the game, they asked him, why did you play Bruce Arians? I mean, why did you play prevent defense, coach? Well, that was the defensive coordinator's decision, even though he was overruled. What does that tell you about leadership? What does it tell you? It's one thing to stay up, say like Stefanski says, I am accountable for everything, right? Because that means nothing. That's just word salad.
Well, that's a bitch move.
But you have people, Parcells wouldn't do that. No. Parcells was out there. What's his face? The Jets head coach. He's on
Robert Saleh.
Get Up.
Oh,
the son of the legend, Buddy Ryan.
Rex Ryan.
Rex Ryan. You wouldn't see Rex Ryan doing that. These guys are stand-up guys. Leaders require a set of talents that don't show up in the GPA. It's character. You have to have a high character guy has a forceful personality who is going to be your head coach. And it's up to ownership to not only recognize and hire that person, but then be involved in making sure that person, that head coach, is developed to their highest level. That's what happened with Bill Belichick. If he doesn't have Robert Kraft, Belichick never becomes who he became, because Kraft put together a cadre of people in the front office to work with Scott Pioli, who came over from who was Bill Parcells' son-in-law.
Wow.
Okay? Scott Pioli was the young guy that was
on the Browns at one point.
Yeah. Ball boy. Belichick, Scott Pioli. Look what happened with Modell, ownership, driving out Ernie Accorsi, who goes over to work with George Young at the Giants. 2 Super Bowls later, Accorsi retires. There are a lot of lessons here that we're not paying attention to in our overwhelming fixation with quarterback saviors. This is a culture problem, people. Ownership needs to recognize to hire that head coach culture guy.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I'm kind of surprised that he's lasted this long, especially after that Bears game.
I would have just let him go. I would have put
Got 2 games left, right?
I would have let him go after the Jets fiasco. Hey, I got another one for you. Do you remember Joe Woods?
Yeah.
And how Flacco torched the Joe Woods prevent defense?
Mm-hmm.
And stole that game? Remember the Chargers game with Joe Woods?
Yep.
When the secondary was all confused?
Mm-hmm.
Guys were wide open on the Chargers. Wide open. And you got to ask yourself, where was Stefanski and Joe Woods? I would have fired Joe Woods right after that Jets game. Nothing happened. You give 2 touchdowns on special teams up, and nothing happens. And again, I will conclude by simply saying, when it's an organizational decision, it's just one big cover your ass. And it's just a death spiral. Because you're never recognizing your screw-ups. You're never learning from them. You're too busy making excuses for failure. No accountability. Final thoughts, Brook?
It's just been a waste of a season. It's not a great time for Cleveland sports. So
The Cavs were, I don't know what's going on there. But
you
had the Guardians win the division.
Yeah. Got the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
But, I'm a Browns fan.
Yeah.
Like, that's my, So, well, as one reporter said, no one wants to win in this town more than Jimmy Haslam. And I believe that. So, I think he's going to make a change. And just got to make sure it's the right one.
Well, I know, speaking for myself as an owner and a founder for 50 years, I've made a lot of mistakes hiring people. A lot of mistakes. But you have to look at each mistake you made and you have to learn from that. And then that's how you start recognizing. Now, Jimmy, you had Ray Farmer. You basically cut, right? You had Mike Pettin, basically undercut him. You went after the shiny bauble with Johnny Manziel. Major screw up there. The Deshaun Watson screw up.
What's the best move he's made? Because I know what it is.
I'd say probably the best thing he did was bring in Andrew Barry and Stefanski and just leave them alone. I was very encouraged by that.
I thought it was hiring John Dorsey.
Yeah.
And I keep going back to, because it's like you said, being an owner and a founder, I think a lot of times we make a ton of mistakes hiring people. You don't make a ton of mistakes firing people. But that's the one, I know I've said this 4 or 5 times, but that's the one thing I wish, we had a crystal ball and he could go back in time and I loved what John Dorsey did,
Yeah, but he, again, no excuse for planting his flag on the Freddie Kitchens mountain.
I get that.
If he just said, Freddie's not ready for prime time, Freddie needs to be OC, Freddie would have said, fine, I'm good. He's not ready for it. And Dorsey made a mistake. But
is that a fireable mistake, you think?
Dorsey said, if Freddie Kitchens is not head coach, I'm leaving.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's what happened. They wanted John Dorsey. He picked Nick Chubb. He got Baker.
Denzel,
yeah.
Jarvis,
Right.
Wyatt Teller.
Bill Callahan. Yeah. No, we had a good team. But you know what? Ownership, look at Jimmy, if you're listening to this, you have to learn how to be an NFL owner. Look at the Rooneys. Look at ownership. Look at the Giants.
The Maras.
Organization, you have to learn how to be an NFL owner. That requires its own skill sets because it is so vicious and brutal and competitive in the NFL. It's not like owning truck stops. When you have a great idea, your brother's governor of Tennessee, you know what? There's not a lot of competition. In the NFL, you're competing with what? 32 other teams? Or something like that? It's brutal. You don't know how to be an NFL owner.
Well, he's still a young NFL owner.
And you know what? If you really want this success, you got to go on a retreat somewhere and really unpack what's been happening over the last 10 years of your ownership and really come at it. But this kind of like we're going to Greenbrier to bond as a team bullshit, that somehow they think that's the magic elixir. Is that going to cure special teams?
That's
going to Greenbrier?
Yeah, that's the magic elixir when you've had history of winning with the same team. That's not when you're, so.
You don't need to go to the Greenbrier, okay? You don't need to do that. It's a business. You don't need this bullshit corporate team building crap. You know what? It's fundamentals. It's blocking, tackling. It's lining up. It's being able to do this in your sleep. The kind of stuff you said you're learning in your OTAs.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's not sexy. It's not sexy. It is, going to the Greenbrier is sexy. Going out there and mouthing that everybody's going to be accountable. That's just word salad bullshit. And the fan base is sick and tired of, and they're sick and tired of listening to the cliches coming out of some of the media who are basically enabling this. I got one thing I'm going to throw out. And we'll definitely end on this note. I don't usually talk about politics, but I'm watching Trump go after all these women reporters. You're a pig. You're dumb. You're a moron. What a stupid question. You know what's going to happen in the next couple months? He's going to say that to a woman reporter who's had a bad day. Maybe they just found out her husband's got cancer, or his kid's got cancer or something. Mom just died. You know what? She's going to look at him and she's going to say, "Fuck you," in the Oval Office and walk out. I'm waiting for that viral moment. I'm waiting for somebody in the media to challenge the organizational kabuki theater. Will somebody speak for the fan in these press conferences? Okay.
Right.
We'll end on that note.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Browns Anonymous podcast with Mike Riley. We have a lot more content on the way as we get this new podcast started. You can also check out some of our other podcasts like the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast and other new ones that will start soon. On any platform that you find yourself listening to us on, feel free to leave us a like or comment or follow us. It always helps.